Hey, what's up guys, it's Disturbed. Channel should be showing you guys what I believe to be the very best PvP build in patch 1.4. I've had a lot of time to test a bunch of different builds, and this is what I always end up coming back to. I end up doing the most amount of damage with this. It has the most versatility in my opinion, and it just works the best for me personally, and I just love to use SMGs, and this build caters to SMGs way more. So yeah, I just thought I would make this video just to, give you guys kind of an outline of what a 1.4 build looks like, so you know what to stock up for. And this is a lot of the things that you're going to see in this build is very commonplace with a lot of other builds, but I just thought I would show you guys my favorite PvP build. Now the PTS does end tonight actually, so I won't be able to make any other build videos. My apologies for that. So I just decided that if I'm going to make one build video, it would be my favorite PvP build, and that is Alpha Bridge. So let's get right into it. So this looks a little bit interesting and most likely different if you haven't seen the PTS, and I'm going to try to cover everything. I just don't want to get super in depth and have the video be really long. I want to be concise, but at the same time I want to provide a good amount of information so you're not left hanging. So first off, I'm just going to go over the gear set bonuses, the other high ends that I have, and then how I individually roll everything. So starting off, obviously I'm going to be running Alpha Bridge. The great thing about Alpha Bridge now is that they remove the medkit capacity, which was helpful I suppose, but there's no more ammo or medkit capacity, so that kind of sucks. But to substitute it, we get an extra 5% weapon damage, which is awesome. And now that a health regen procs, even when I think it works, I don't know, they changed the way that health regen is, so it occurs more frequently. So getting your health regen faster is really helpful in PvP scenarios, and the extra 5% weapon damage on paper might not seem like a lot, but when comparing the bonuses to having Alpha Bridges compared to other gear sets, the 5% actually does end up making a pretty big difference. And I mean, with looking at other gear set bonuses like 20% headshot damage versus 5% weapon damage, obviously the headshot's going to be more, but it's still a really big bonus, because all the numbers have just been pushed down. Like this is now 8% as opposed to I think it was a little bit more. That doesn't really prove my point there, but you know what I mean. 5% is still, it might seem like a negligible number, but it actually is pretty respectable, a pretty respectable amount for the way that every other gear set's been changed. Now for the two high ends, I'm going with Savage because I'm going to be using an MP5, and I just stack crit chance to complement the fact that I'm using crit damage. So Savage has been nerfed, but it still is probably best in slot for a high end. You can go with Reckless, and Reckless and Savage with an SMG build give around the same amount of benefit for damage, but the problem with Reckless is that you are actually taking more damage. Reckless is a little bit better than Savage is, but you're taking a little bit more damage, so it's just way better in the long run to go for Savage. Now you see that I have a mask. There are a lot of other high ends that you can vouch for, which is, a big part of 1.4's build diversity. I'm not sure there's a huge amount of build diversity and you can make an infinite amount of builds because the game is so balanced. No, it's really not like that. I don't know why people keep painting that picture. Lone Star is still garbage. There's still like the top 3 gear sets, and that's kind of everything that's used, and everything else kind of just gets pushed aside. So I don't know, that I'm just going on a tangent here, but for the high end I decided to go with Tenacious. There are a bunch of other options, but Tenacious is great because I like to 1v1 a lot, and the way that I play is I time Tenacious around when I use Adrenaline, and then so like I let somebody shoot me, and then I kind of run around in circles to where they don't hit me, so then I have a little bit of health left over, and then I pop a med kit, I get my Adrenaline, and while they're reloading, I'm popping that med kit, so then I get a full overshield from my med kit and an extra 10% damage for a whole 10 seconds, and I just get to shred through them. So Tenacious is awesome. There's a bunch of other things that are really good. Refresh is good. All healing is improved by 30% when the last health segment. It's pretty nice. The only problem I found with it was that when I was using, I was like waiting to get to the last health segment, but then that would often result in me waiting to get to the last health segment, and then I just get instantly melted because of the delay on medkits and just due to the lag in the game. So refresh is good, just only if you know how to use it perfectly. And in some scenarios it's just not practical because you'll be waiting to get to that last health segment, and then you'll just get melted through it because of delay of the medkit or the heal, or just because people just melt you much faster than you had anticipated. So refresh is nice, it's just not the most practical thing in the world. Another really good high end you can go for, of course, you can go for Reckless, the extra damage if you want to just stack a lot of damage. I personally like to be tanky. I don't want to take more damage, so Tenacious is great for me, especially with the way that I play. Rapid is pretty decent, decreases cooldown for healing seals by 15%. It's not the best in the world, but it still is, it's a pretty good bonus. Another great bonus is Specialized Backpack. This gives you actually a pretty good amount of skill power. Right now 1.3 doesn't give much skill power, but in 1.4 you can see I'm gaining almost 20k skill power, which is pretty damn nice. So if you don't have anything better, Specialized is really good as well. And besides that, there aren't that many other good high ends. My favorite personally though are Savage and Tenacious, so that's what I'm running. Now in terms of the gun talents, this is a very big thing. Gun talents have been changed drastically, and so the perfect 6 rolls has kind of swayed a little bit. I think it is still generally kind of the same 6, but I'll just reiterate on them again. So mine isn't perfect. I have Brutal, Responsive, Fierce, Vicious, Unforgiving, and Competent. The things that you absolutely need: Responsive, Vicious, Unforgiving, and Competent. Those are the 4 that you absolutely need. For the other 2, you can get a lot of substitution. The reason that you need Unforgiving, Competent, Vicious, and Responsive is because they give flat damage bonuses, which are far superior to everything else. And 10% damage and closer than 10 meters is way better than just 12% headshot damage, because you're not landing 100% of the time headshots. So Responsive, automatically one of the best in the game. Vicious, critical hit chance by 10%, which is up almost all the time. Really complements the fact that you're stacking crit damage, one of the best in the game. Unforgiving, with the way that you're really tanky nowadays and gunfights last much longer, you're constantly at lower than 1 health bar, so you're almost getting a concurrent additional 10% to 25% health, and this is really amazing on 1v1s as well. Not health damage, really good in 1v1s, just a huge amount of extra damage when you get to really low health, so this is amazing. Competent lasts for 15 seconds, flat 10% damage, of just amazing. The other 2, the reason I say that you can switch them out is because there's a lot of good talents that you can substitute. So you can go with, my favorite would be Deadly, and then probably Hurried, so that you can reload a lot faster. Right now I have Brutal and Fierce. If I could reroll it, I would. I've rerolled it the max amount of times and it's stuck on Brutal. Sucks to suck, I prefer Deadly just because you're not going to be landing headshots as much as you are critting, at least me personally, because my headshot, I don't land more headshots than I do body shots, so it's not worth it for me to go for Brutal, so I'd much rather have Deadly. Now I also went for Fierce on this. I just don't have a PP19 that's good. If I did, I'd probably go for Hurry just because you reload really fast with that, but Fierce is also a really good choice. There's 5% crit chance. You can also go for something like Predatory. You kill an NPC, gives you 25% of your health over the span of, I believe it's like 20 seconds. It's not the greatest in the world, but it's still pretty nice. There are a few others. Let me just see if I can see any that I Accurate for SMGs, Accurate's not bad, and you're going to want to use SMGs, or Accurate is bad, I mean, and you're going to want to use SMGs, so Accurate's not going to help you in that scenario. I think that's kind of all the only good talents in a PvP scenario, at least wise for SMGs. I'm just going to scroll through just to see if I have possibly forgotten about something. Swift is maybe decent. I would only use Swift if you don't have something else to use. Sorry, that was me closing a knife, but yeah, Fierce is really good, just stacking as much crit chance as possible, just because it's really hard to get crit chance cap with the way that the numbers have been swayed. So to me, a perfect setup would be Brutal, or not Brutal, I just contradicted myself now. Deadly, Responsive, Vicious, Unforgiving, Competent, and either Fierce or Hurried. I haven't really tested Hurried in 1.4, but I really do think that Hurried is really nice, though the 5% crit chance could possibly be better as well, so I'd probably have to run the numbers on that, but one of those two. Brutal is still really good, but like I said, you're not going to be landing that many headshots, especially on console, so it's more worth it to go for something like Deadly when you're stacking crit chance. Now, another major thing that's changed is weapon mods. So I have compiled what I believe to be the very best weapon mod. I've kind of min-maxed this. I think this is the best for 1.4 when you're using an SMG. So for the scope, you're wanting to main crit damage, and then for the 2 secondaries, headshot and crit chance. But the way that scopes work now in 1.4 is that the top is going to have the highest number. So right here it's crit damage, right here it's crit chance, and then there's also some that have main headshot damage, and then the other 2 stats are just lower than this number. The reason that for crit chance it's lower is because they want to have it be proportional, so they're not going to put 18% crit damage and then 18% crit chance, because it would be way more worth it to go for the crit chances because of the way that they scale. I'm gonna put down my knife so you guys don't hear that anymore. But yeah, I think it's way more worth it to go for crit damage and then go for it headshot damage next to that and then crit chance. I don't even think you can get headshot damage scopes on SMGs, and even if you could, it's still more worth it to go for headshots, because it's pretty much just like the Brutal Deadly scenario. It's more worth it to go for Deadly because you're going to be landing more crits with the way that you're prioritizing crit chance. more so than you would be landing headshots, because you know your accuracy isn't going to be more than 60%, which would be crit cap. So way more worth it to go for crit damage. And then for the other two, like I said, you want headshot damage and crit chance. These are interchangeable. You can see right there I got 6% there, 3%, 2.5%, 6%. This is just a low roll. That's the only reason that's a lower number. So at the top you just want crit damage. You know, that's pretty self-explanatory. Now for the magazine, this is much different. Obviously you're going to want magazine size. And then I'm not really completely sure on how these kind of work, but I think the two are just kind of similar. I don't know how the way that this works. Like on the scope, the top number was the highest. I guess it actually, yeah, I guess it kind of is like that. So the top number is the highest, obviously being magazine size, and then the two are just added attributes, I suppose is the way that you could say it. And then heavy magazine springs are kind of the same way as scopes, just like the top one is the highest and then the bottom two are the lower numbers, if that makes sense. So you're going to be wanting to go for mag size, obviously, and then the best way to the best thing to go for is crit chance and rate of fire. Crit chance is because you're stacking a lot of crit chance, obviously, and like you can see here, you can only get like 4% crit damage, which really isn't better than 3% crit chance at all. The only way that it would be better if it was like 12% or something around those lines. So way more worth it to go for crit chance. Then rate of fire is just flat out better than everything else, especially with an MP5. So the best in slot for a magazine size, crit chance, rate of fire. Again, I actually haven't mentioned this before. If you're in 1.3, I have absolutely no idea how these mods are going to translate over, so I would just say just hoard a bunch of mods. Now, moving on to the grip, you want crit damage as the main, because there isn't any, you can't get crit chance or anything, so on a grip you're always going to want crit damage. You can get like accuracy, stability, optimal range, you know, the reload speed is the top, but crit damage is always going to be better. And then for the bottom two, you want reload speed and then probably accuracy. The bottom one doesn't really matter, you just want crit damage and reload speed. This one you can go for accuracy, stability, optimal range. Probably optimal range would be more valuable for an SMG, though 2% or something really doesn't make any difference at all. So I would just say make sure to get crit damage and reload speed. Now for the muzzle, same thing like the scope, crit damage, headshot damage, crit chance. You can vouch for headshot damage as a priority. You can also get something like this. I haven't run the numbers on this. The DPS stat does say that it's better. I still think though that it's more worth it to go for more crit damage than crit chance in this case, because with the way that I'm stacking Vicious, Fierce, using Pulse with crit chance mods and etc., it's way, I mean, I'm probably already going to be crit capped, so it's more worth it just to get as much damage as I can. And I'm still, even if I were to use this, I'm only gaining 4% extra crit chance, but I'm losing 13% crit damage, which might be worth it depending upon your gun rolls and if you have Vicious and Fierce and if you have everything else min-maxed. But personally, I think it's better to go for the main is crit damage and then headshot damage and crit chance. By the way, you can't get like, I already explained that, so never mind. In terms of what SMG you want to use, I don't want to start a huge debate right now. I'm probably going to prove this in a later video. Actually, we'll probably make a part 2 to the video that I made for 1.3, what is the best gun in PvP. I'll probably just be making a shitload of spreadsheets figuring out what the best gun is. But for right now, if you want to just believe me, it's the MP5. If you want to just believe me and just take my word for it, it's the MP5. If not, if you don't believe me, if you think it's the MP7, if you think it's the M60, if you think it's the Police M4, you are entitled to your opinion. Right now, I'm telling you that it is the MP5 with Alpha Bridge at least, because Alpha Bridge, you get that base crit chance or crit damage. The reason that the MP5 is better than say the Vector or the CA21 or the MP7, the base damage is way higher than that of the MP7, and you can get rate of fire mags, and it has a bigger magazine size as well. The MP7 will still have slightly better burst damage, but it's all about sustained damage now. It's not burst damage anymore because you don't kill people in one magazine. So sustained damage is much better. MP5, way bigger mag, more controllable RPM, which means more controllable recoil, and then way higher base damage. So just better to go for an MP5. I'm not going to go on about this too much. Just take my word for it. If you don't, I'll prove it in a later video. I know this video is dragging on. I just want to make sure to go over everything. I'm really sorry for the length. Now, going into gear pieces, or individual roles, I mean. So for your chest piece, you're going to want armor. You want armor on absolutely everything. If you're going to take anything away from this, is that you want armor on absolutely every single piece that you can get it, because the crit or the armor cap right now, did I skip past toughness? Nope, I did not. The armor cap is 70%. with armor on everything and really high rolls, I'm at 57.92. 70% is impossible to get, and with the way that everything else is rolled, I'll probably make a video on this too, just talking about how ridiculous it is. But in no world would you rather go for like 6 or 8% crit damage on knee pads as opposed to 1000 armor. Absolutely not. That's like so much mitigation, and you're just taking way less damage. So it's way more worth it to go for to be going for armor. So that's the main thing you want to take away from this video. Now for the second attribute, I have health. Health probably isn't the best thing to do. I would probably go for exotic damage resilience or possibly health on kill. Health is still decent, but exotic damage resilience is really good because all these people using flame turrets and frag grenades and all this other garbage, so getting the exotic damage resilience is really helpful towards that. For the mask, there's two things you can go for. I go for crit chance because I'm stacking a shitload of crit damage. You can also go for skill power so that your heal heals you for more. Thing about skill powers though is that it stacks horribly. So 8% or 8k skill power isn't going to give me more than 1% extra crit damage on my pulse, which is complete garbage. But it does help with the heal a little bit, and it will make the difference between giving you a slight overshield to a half overshield or something like that, if that makes sense. So skill power can be worth it. I just think it's way better to go for a crit chance. I mean, 4% sounds like it's not that much, but in the grand scheme of things, with everything being tuned down, it is kind of a big deal. Knee pads, you're going to want armor. Minor attributes do make sense now, and you do kind of want to prioritize these because people are using shock turrets, they're using Predator's Mark, they're using flame. So getting shock, bleed, and flame resistance on every piece of gear that you can is great. It's not a must, but if you're trying to min-max as much as possible, that's really going to help because all these people using these aid status effects is really, really irritating. So just trying to get as much resist on it as you can is really helpful. And then, of course, armor. Backpacks, same exact story. Armor, I have bleed resistance, so I'm pretty damn good against Predator's Mark because do I have bleed resistance on this too? Yeah, I have a lot of bleed resistance stacked up right now. Can you even get it on a mask? You can get it on a mask. I don't think I have it right there. And you can't get it on a chest piece, but yeah. I digress. For your gloves, exact same. SMG damage, crit chance. Obviously the numbers have been tuned down a lot, but it's still the exact same thing. Holster, exact same thing. You're going to be wanting to go for armor, and then there's no other attribute associated with that. In terms of your mods, pretty straightforward. Armor, 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 armor. And now in terms of the way that I balance my health and my toughness, or what am I saying, my health and my firearms, I like to have them about the same. A lot of other people like to have either a lot of more toughness, so they'll go for gloves like this and then have like this much toughness. I don't like to do this. I just don't feel comfortable. I like to have it equaled out. I've always liked to do this. I just like to have them a little bit more firearms is typically what I like to do. 1.3 I went for a little bit more stamina, but nonetheless it was balanced. A lot of other people, like my friends, they will just go for like 5,400 firearms and then like around 300k toughness. I would just say you need at least 300k if you want to be viable in PvP. Anything under 300k, you are going to get shredded. But at least if you are at 300 to 400k, that is a sweet spot. Anything under, anything above, I think is overkill. So for me, 350 is perfect with my firearms. I think this ratio is fantastic. Other people will disagree, is what it is. Just make sure you're at 300k. Now, in terms of your skills, pulse with conceal, what am I saying? Pulse with conceal, scrambler. I run this because I go solo all the time. The reason that I do this is because everybody else is going to be running conceal as well. And oh, I didn't even go into performance mods. I'm so sorry. Performance mods. This is another huge thing about 1.4. I originally was like, oh, I'll just stack a bunch of pulse crit chance. But like I was just saying, everybody runs conceal now. So you're just going to be, it's counterproductive to stack this. So what I decided to do is, since I don't go for skill power on any pieces, just stack first aid self-heal. Just stack this. And when I stack this, my heal heals me for significantly more. I get 5.5%, 5.5%, 5.5%. 5.5%. That is so much extra health. That's like, what, 23% extra first aid self-heal? That's insane. That is so much more. So I think it's more worth it to go for that. If there's other people using pulse, then you could decide to use, you could be an asshole and use a flame turret or a shock turret, and then use your performance mods to go for something like turret health or turret damage or something. Or you could use sticky bomb flashbang and then change the performance mods to sticky bomb explosion radius. Or you can go for a cluster grenade, which is kind of cancerous, just like flame turrets are. And you can go for Seeker Mine damage or Seeker Mine explosion radius. That would be good too. Personally, I like to always run the Scrambler because I don't really like to use these cheesy things, and I think it's just more fair to run this. And with the way that I play, I always will, since I'm using Competent, I just use my pulse right when I open up a fight. That gives me my Competent for a good amount of time, and then I use Tenacious, and then I get my heal, and then I have Competent up all the time, yada yada yada. So Scrambler is really nice. Now, so that's what I use for the skills. Immunizer, I'll probably make a dedicated video talking about all these skills because it is kind of an issue at the moment. But Immunizer or something you think, oh well, that can counter sticky bomb flashbang and flame turrets and bleed from Predator's Mark. It can't, because it gets one-shotted. It has absolutely no health. 39,000 as compared to 150,000. Such a joke. It gets melted instantly, so no point in running that. So I would just say use Conceal. For your talents, there's a lot of different things that you can use. This is a way that I have it set up for 1v1s. I go for Adrenaline because basically what this does is if you use a med kit when you're in your first health segment, it will give you an overshield, and overshield mitigates more damage, and it's just more health that you have. So using Adrenaline is really great. I also go for Critical Save, use a med kit during low health to increase damage resistance. I've heard that it isn't working right now, and I wouldn't be surprised because I haven't seen my numbers going down after seeing somebody use a med kit at low health, and I haven't seen me taking less damage. So I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't working right now, but this is still probably one of the best, if not the best talent to run. Combat Medic, really, really good right now due to the fact that everybody's tanky, and when you're in a group fight, you just use a med kit, heals your whole group, really great. Strike Back, I only sometimes use this in 1v1s if I think the fight's going to last very long. A lot of people praise this talent. I really don't think it's worth it. Reach low health to reduce active skill cooldowns by 20%. 20% isn't that big of a number, and how often are you really in your last third health segment? Like, let's be real, if you're sitting in your third health segment, unless you're just 1v1ing somebody running in circles or something, or hiding behind a corner, in that scenario, maybe it's helpful. But in group fights, if you're at low health and somebody's shooting you, you're not just going to sit in your last health segment for 20 seconds and still be alive, and that's the only scenario where the extra 20% would really help. So I don't think Strike Back is worth it to run. Sometimes it is worth it to run, like I said, in 1v1s or in that special scenario, but just comparing it to other things, like I would much rather have something like Combat Medic as opposed to Strike Back. So that's just my 2 cents on it. Another great talent, Tactical Advance. Though you are using an SMG, you can just tactically play like this. You can just see, oh, there's some rogues over there, I'm just going to use Tactical Advance. You get a shitload of extra damage for it, lasts for 10 seconds. It's really good. I'll probably make a separate video talking about that as well. Precision. This is really, really, really good, and you probably need this because Scrambler cannot protect against Precision, though it can protect against normal pulse. But Precision adds pulse, which gives you the base pulse, which is around 7% crit chance and around the same amount of crit damage. So pulse is Precision is pretty much a must, so that you get that extra crit chance and extra crit damage. In terms of the very last talent, I would say you can also go for One is None if you want to. You're not headshotting as much, and I think that since I'm not headshotting that often, it's not the greatest thing in the world to go for. Also, sometimes it will jam your weapon, which is going to negatively affect you more than it's going to benefit you if you ever jam it. And that seems to happen quite often, and I would much rather have Combat Medic over One is None personally. In PvE, I'll definitely go for One is None, but in PvP, getting as much survivability as I can, like these 4 talents just embody survivability right here, and then Precision for the extra damage. So that's what I would do for talents. Just probably not worth it in PvP to run One is None when you can use Combat Medic, Critical Save, Adrenaline, possibly even Triage with your, I don't know if it works with medkits. If it does, that's actually kind of cool, especially with Combat Medic. You're not using First Aid as much anymore, so Triage isn't going to be as good. It's still respectable. Maybe you can, that doesn't work in PvP. What was I looking for? What is this? Oh, that's garbage. Oh my god. Okay. This is maybe okay if you're using Seeker Mines. I don't think it's worth it though. Tactical Advance really good too, but yep, it's personal preference, and just the scenario is really what matters. My god, the video is 24 minutes long. I am so sorry. Oh my word, I'm sorry I talked so long. There's just so much information that I wanted to make sure that I got out so that everybody knew everything. My apologies. I hope you all learned something from this. If you stuck to the end, I fucking love you. I'm sorry this took so long, but I really appreciate you sticking around and actually listening to what I have to say, and hopefully you learned something. If you did, please make sure to drop a like. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be it. Get some Alpha Bridge because it's probably the best set in PvP. Thanks, and I'll see you later.
Doza.